I'm rejoining the rails for another epic adventure.
Are you excited?
Who wouldn't be? I'm travelling around the globe again, riding some of the most legendary trains in the world to experience more spectacular railways. Look at this place! From the Arctic Circle to the glorious Andes and the heart of Europe. Isn't it fantastic? It's just a ticket haul to the edge of America. Oh, this is amazing! And I'll venture off the tracks to discover awe-inspiring places, England, extraordinary people,
Hey, hello, Tony.
and unforgettable experiences.
That's staggering, isn't it?
The Chihuahuan Desert. It's the second largest desert in North America, and these are the Samaluca Dunes. It's a dry, unrelenting, lifeless place, and I'm really struggling. Until the railways and the roads came, these dunes were a massive barrier for anyone who wanted to travel from the south to the north. And you can see why. There's no one around at all. There's no water, just sand and sand and more sand. Okay, I think we got it there. Which car am I in? Oh, come on. I'm not actually going to trek across the desert, am I? I need to get to the city of Juarez. So, to make it across part of this 140,000 square mile desert, I'm hitching a ride with Kiki Chavez. Seems like this is a lot of fun.
It is a lot of fun.
How long have you been doing it?
For 30 years.
30 years.
And I'm here every single time I can.
He runs 4x4 tours for some of the growing number of tourists and extreme sport enthusiasts attracted to this dramatic landscape.
You're gonna have a chance to drive my car.
You can let me have a chance? Oh, wow. Suppose I roll the car.
I don't care. You're Mr. Sir Tony Robinson. You can do whatever you want here in Mexico.
He might feel differently in a minute.
Partner.
Let's hear it. Oh, what a gorgeous noise. Here we go.
Uh-huh.
I can hardly see over the windscreen because I'm so little and it's so far back. Whoa! Here we go. Oh, Jesus. Here we go, here we go. Hey! Oh!
Okay, follow this right here, and then go. Okay, turn right, right. Hey, hello, Tony.
Ow!
It was to the right, it was to the right.
I've survived the dunes and made it to Juarez. It's my last stop in Mexico, but it's right up against the border. In fact, Juarez is part of the world's biggest binational neighborhood. A combined population of 2.5 million Mexicans and Americans live side by side, here and next door in the US city of El Paso. But for people on this side of the fence, life can be a struggle. This is a city that has had more than its share of troubles. It was once known as the murder capital of the world because of its record-breaking homicide rate. In 1 year, nearly 4,000 people were murdered because of the cartels trying to get control of the lucrative drugs trade to the US. At the peak of the violence in 2010, the murder rate here was higher than in Baghdad. Thankfully, crime has now fallen. But Juarez still has to deal with being alongside one of the most notorious borders in the world, the 2,000-mile boundary between Mexico and the US. This is the border right here. I'm in Juarez. Over there, you can see the buildings of El Paso. You can cross this bridge. That's the actual crossing point there. You can see the Mexican flags and the US flags. Down here is the railway. Sadly, though, it's only for freight nowadays. Passenger line's closed. You hear that? That's the border control. There's been a border crossing here for 170 years, but recently it's taken on a new significance. President Trump has made it harder to get across. He says that the US needs to stop illegal immigrants arriving from Mexico. I want to get beyond the headlines. So before I make my own crossing, I'm going to meet some locals who found their own way to bring a bit of peace to this much maligned part of the world. YS Yoga run regular classes right next to the border. The group's founders say the aim is to demonstrate the need for harmony between the two nations and its hope for a world without walls.
Y vamos a cantar Om.
For an old hippie like me, this is just what the doctor ordered. But I want to know what these people get out of it.
It's always a pleasure. It's always moving for everyone.
It is moving, isn't it? Why is it so moving? Why did both you and I feel that?
Maybe because it's a difficult time for everyone here. We come in peace, and basically we are the same, you know? We love our families, we love our friends, we like to eat food and enjoy.
Oh, you certainly do that one, yeah.
The world think here in Juarez is just murder and violence. It's not true.
It's great for me to come here to a place which I thought was just very scary and to find ordinary working people who have such a passion for their city and are so proud of it and just want to go like that at the border.
Yeah, thank you. And I really appreciate it.
Thank you. Thank you very much. These people have really helped me see another side of Mexico. Not the one that normally makes the news. They're taking a stand, just in the most peaceful way possible. No, I feel a bit emotional about this. I think it's one of the loveliest things I've ever seen. I don't want to be all hippy-dippy. I know that doing a yoga class in front of that ghastly metal and barbed wire obscenity isn't going to make it fall down, but there's something about the assertion of hope, the balance, the clarity, the meditation on offer here that sort of gives you a bit of hope in quite difficult times. Coming up, I make it to the US of A, where I rejoice in a retro piece of public transport. It's not just about transportation, is it? This is about the culture of El Paso. Wrestle with a Hispanic hobby and come out fighting. I'm actually 13 years older than your father, and I still whipped your ass. Oh! I'm halfway through my journey from Mexico to Los Angeles. After more than 500 miles, I've crossed into the United States and El Paso via its Mexican sister city, Juarez. Well, I finally managed to make it across the border and I'm now in the US of A. We weren't allowed to film the actual crossing point. Security is really, really tight. But quite frankly, I don't think you'd have been that interested in watching me queue for 2.5 hours. Life here is more than 2 times more expensive, and in stark contrast to Juarez, the Texan town has been named one of the safest cities in the US. And the strict border controls help to keep the cities firmly divided. Sadly, there's no longer any passenger rail services that connect them. But on the outskirts of town, there's evidence that crossing between Mexico and the US didn't always used to be such an ordeal. Look at these tucked away at the back of the bus depot. 3 old hulks, trams, what the Americans call streetcars. And they didn't just pootle around in El Paso. These were international vehicles. They crossed the border every day into Juarez and then came back again. At their peak in the 1960s, The streetcars transported hundreds of thousands of people each year between the US and Mexico, until the service was abruptly cancelled. But that was in 1973, and now, a few months ago, a few of these beautiful retro machines started riding the roads again. In 2015, a $97 million project began construction on 5 miles of track and 27 new stops. 6 of the old streetcars were refurbished and now service downtown El Paso. Local politician Peter Svarsbein was one of the residents who campaigned for their return, and he's still passionate about what they symbolise to his city. It's not just about transportation, is it? This is about the culture of El Paso.
And celebrating and bringing back something that was part of the heart and the soul of this community.
But, it still doesn't go to Juarez anymore.
Yes,
it doesn't
not yet.
cross the border, does it?
Not yet.
It reaches the border and just bounces back.
But, you know, the thing about it is that it has now pushed that conversation about not if we should go back, but when do we go back into Mexico?
Yeah.
You're visiting here. And the thing that somebody may not get is that you have families that cross every day, music, business, students that cross every day. There's a million different reasons that we cross, both south and north and south.
Illicit immigration may make the headlines, but more than 50,000 people cross the border legally here each day. Kids from Juarez cross to El Paso to go to US schools, and Americans travel to Juarez to look for a bargain in the cheaper Mexican shops.
So when we look at this university, you have close to a third of the 30,000 students here cross in from Mexico. They're Mexican national students that are coming to study here. So how do we go and get those people over safe and efficiently?
Everyone else I've spoken to talks about the border as just something awful and bleak and black and horrible, which frankly it is. But you're saying, hey, it's an opportunity.
The border is a place where both of us come together. The border isn't something that separates us. The border is something that brings us together. That's what this trolley used to help to do so many decades. It helped people get across.
Mexico and the US are much more connected than they might first appear to be. And maybe that's not so surprising when you consider their history. If I'd been standing here 200 years ago, I wouldn't have been in the US. I'd have been in Mexico. I'd have had to have walked a few hundred miles in that direction before I came to the border. But all that changed dramatically in the middle of the 19th century. When a war broke out between the US and Mexico in 1846, it was over whether the Americans had the right to annex Texas from the Mexicans. But it didn't take long for the US to decisively defeat its southern neighbour. They didn't stop there, though. Soon, American troops had marched all the way to Mexican California, giving the US the boundaries we know today. Mexico had to hand over huge swathes of land. 500,000 square miles were added to the US, with the Rio Grande as the new southern border. Today, 80% of El Paso's population is Hispanic, and there's a colourful Latino culture on display in the city. These guys are practicing Lucha Libre, an icon of Mexican pop culture. What does Lucha Libre mean?
It means pro wrestling or freestyle. Why? Because you can use chairs, you can use table, you can use your fist, your hand, knees. There's no rules for Lucha Libre.
Andres Ontiveros and his brothers started their own Lucha Libre show in El Paso in 2012. So when you get into the ring with another guy, do you know who's going to win?
Actually, to be honest, yes. It's predetermined.
It doesn't matter though, it's a show.
It is. And most of a lot of guys are gonna hate me for this, but it is predetermined because it is acting.
And will you always be the same character every week?
Yes, I have one character and I always do that character.
Lucha Libre is half martial arts and half theatrical performance. It's highly stylized, involving choreographed battles between goodies and baddies. And the costumes and masks are crucial to getting into character. Time to embrace my secret alter ego. El Train Man. Can't see a thing in this bloody mask.
Hey, Tony, El Rielero, why don't you come in? We want to hurt you, okay? Do a flip, do a flip. There you go. Do you want to become a luchador?
I do.
All right, let me teach you a move, okay?
Yeah.
We call this move La Caponesa. So you're gonna be in front of your opponent, you're gonna grab him from the shoulder blade.
Yeah.
You're gonna push him as hard as you can this side.
Yeah.
So it's gonna look like this. Give it a try, okay? Do it again, shoulder blade, push him, ready? And
Push him.
go. Nice, good job. Give it another shot. One more time. Good job, Tony. You have it.
I do have it.
You have it.
Nobody messes with an Englishman. Beat you all.
Good job, Tony.
Thank you.
Good. Welcome.
I want you to know, I'm actually 13 years older than your father, and I still whipped your ass.
Oh, get out of here.
I'm moving on towards my final destination. This is El Paso Union Station. As you can see, it's pretty grand and fairly wonderful. That's because back in the day, it was America's only international railway station. At the turn of the century, there were so many stations in El Paso, it was confusing passengers. So the railway companies got together to build this large one to serve all their different trains, hence the name. But sadly today, there's only one train every couple of days. Could I have a one-way ticket to LA, please?
Yes.
Thank you. Thanks a lot. Bye. This is the Sunset Limited. It's already travelled more than 1,000 miles from New Orleans, and it's heading for my last stop, Los Angeles.